The discussion around the Iraqi dinar often gets trapped in short-term expectations, rumors, and emotional reactions to daily exchange rate movements. But the deeper story unfolding right now is far more structural and long-lasting. What is happening beneath the surface is a methodical transformation of Iraq's financial architecture, one that is designed to reshape how money moves through the economy, how institutions interact with global systems, and how confidence is gradually rebuilt after decades of disruption. This transformation is not loud, dramatic, or sudden. It is quiet, technical, and deliberate, and that is precisely why many people overlook its importance. Yet for anyone paying close attention, these developments reveal the foundation being laid for long-term monetary stability rather than short-term speculation. For many years, Iraq's economy operated in a cash-dominated environment. Physical currency was the primary medium of exchange, not by preference, but by necessity. Limited banking access, weak infrastructure, and years of instability pushed citizens and businesses to rely on cash transactions and informal networks. While this system allowed basic economic activity to continue, it also created inefficiencies that held the economy back. Cash-heavy systems make it difficult to track money flows, enforce regulations, control inflation, and prevent corruption. They also isolate a country from global financial networks that depend on transparency, compliance, and traceability. Recognizing these challenges, Iraqi authorities began shifting focus toward modernization, and at the center of this effort is the gradual digital transformation of the financial system. Digitalization is not simply about replacing cash with electronic payments. It represents a fundamental change in how economic activity is recorded, monitored, and managed. When transactions move through digital channels, they create data. That data allows policymakers to understand economic behavior in real time, measure liquidity, and adjust monetary policy with far greater precision. For the Central Bank of Iraq, this shift enhances its ability to regulate the money supply, manage inflationary pressures, and stabilize the currency. Rather than reacting to incomplete or delayed information, the central bank gains visibility into how dinars circulate throughout the economy. This visibility is essential for any modern monetary system and is a prerequisite for deeper integration into the global financial environment. One of the most visible signs of this transformation is the expansion of electronic payment systems across Iraq. Government salaries, pensions, and social welfare payments are increasingly distributed through digital channels rather than physical cash. This change may seem administrative on the surface, but its implications are profound. By moving payments into the formal banking system, millions of Iraqis are being introduced to bank accounts, debit cards, and digital wallets for the first time. Each new account strengthens the formal financial sector and reduces reliance on informal cash networks. At the same time, digital distribution reduces leakage, limits fraud, and improves efficiency in public spending. Funds reach their intended recipients more reliably, and the government gains better oversight of fiscal flows. As digital payments expand, banks themselves are undergoing critical internal upgrades. Core banking systems are being modernized to meet international standards, compliance frameworks are being strengthened, and connections with regional and global payment networks are improving. These changes are not optional if Iraq intends to reestablish itself as a credible participant in international finance. Correspondent banking relationships depend on trust, transparency, and adherence, anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing standards. By upgrading systems and aligning with global norms, Iraqi banks increase their ability to process cross-border transactions, facilitate trade financing, and attract foreign investment. A currency that functions within a modern banking environment becomes easier to use, easier to trust, and easier to integrate into legitimate global commerce. Another crucial aspect of digitalization is its role in combating corruption and illicit financial activity. Cash-based systems are notoriously difficult to monitor, making them vulnerable to misuse and abuse. Digital transactions, by contrast, leave records that can be audited and analyzed. This does not eliminate corruption overnight, but it significantly raises the cost of illicit behavior by increasing the likelihood of detection. As Iraq strengthens its regulatory frameworks and enforcement mechanisms, digital financial tools become powerful allies in promoting accountability. International institutions place significant weight on these capabilities when assessing a country's readiness for cooperation and support. Alignment with global compliance standards is not merely symbolic, it is a functional requirement for deeper engagement with organizations such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and major international banks. Financial inclusion is another pillar of this transformation. Large segments of the Iraqi population have historically operated outside the formal banking system, relying on cash savings and informal lending arrangements. This exclusion limited access to credit, savings products, and financial security. Digital wallets, mobile banking applications, and electronic identification systems are beginning to change that reality. When individuals can securely store and transfer dinars digitally, they gain access to a broader range of financial services. Small businesses can accept electronic payments, build transaction histories, and eventually qualify for loans. Households can save more safely and participate more fully in the formal economy. Over time, this inclusion strengthens domestic demand and builds a more resilient economic base. From an investor perspective, these developments matter because they signal intent and capacity. Investors look for systems that are regulated, transparent, and scalable. A digitized financial ecosystem suggests that authorities are serious about reform and committed to long-term stability. This does not mean that currency appreciation is immediate or guaranteed. Digitalization alone does not drive exchange rates higher. However, it establishes the infrastructure necessary for any sustainable improvement in currency value. Without modern systems in place, sudden currency changes would introduce chaos rather than confidence. Digital readiness reduces those risks by ensuring that transactions can be monitored, settlements processed efficiently, and liquidity managed effectively. It is also important to distinguish clearly between digital transformation and speculative expectations. Digital dinar initiatives are often misunderstood as signals of imminent revaluation or dramatic exchange rate shifts. In reality, they reflect a strategic effort to modernize how the currency functions within the economy. Central banks around the world prioritize stability over excitement. Gradual reform, tested systems, and controlled implementation are hallmarks of responsible monetary management. Understanding this approach helps observers set realistic expectations while appreciating the significance of the changes underway. Progress in financial infrastructure may not generate headlines every day, but that creates the conditions for resilience and credibility over time. Beyond banking and payments, digitalization is extending into broader areas of public finance. Tax collection systems, customs operations, and public procurement processes are increasingly incorporating digital platforms. This integration improves revenue management and reduces dependence on oil income alone. When governments can track revenues more accurately and reduce leakages, fiscal planning becomes more reliable. Stronger public finances support macroeconomic stability, which indirectly benefits the national currency. Confidence in a currency is closely tied to confidence in the state's ability to manage its finances responsibly. Digital tools enhance that capability by providing timely data and reducing opportunities for mismanagement. Public perception also plays a critical role in this transformation. As citizens become more familiar with digital payments and electronic banking, trust in formal institutions can gradually increase. This trust encourages people to deposit funds in banks rather than hoarding cash at home. Increased deposits strengthen bank balance sheets, enabling more lending to businesses and entrepreneurs. This lending supports economic growth, job creation, and innovation. As economic activity expands, the dinar's role as a functional medium of exchange is reinforced. A currency that people use confidently in everyday transactions gains strength through utility as much as through policy. Internationally, Iraq's embrace of financial technology positions it closer to regional peers that have already adopted advanced digital systems. Alignment with regional payment networks and trade platforms reduces transaction costs and facilitates cross-border commerce. When standards align, trade becomes smoother, faster, and more predictable. This connectivity supports legitimate demand for the dinar in trade settlements and business transactions. Over time, such demand contributes to currency stability and relevance. Stability, rather than sudden appreciation, is often the most meaningful milestone for a currency emerging from a long period of volatility. Ultimately, the story of the Iraqi dinar in this phase is not about hype or quick gains. It is about infrastructure, discipline, and institutional rebuilding. Digitalization represents a tool, not a shortcut. It supports transparency, inclusion, and global integration, all of which are essential for long-term economic health. While exchange rate discussions will always capture attention, the deeper transformation lies in how the currency is evolving to function within a modern financial framework. Those who focus on these fundamentals gain a clearer understanding of where Iraq's financial future is headed and why patience and perspective matter in evaluating progress. This ongoing transformation is still in motion, and its outcomes will unfold over years rather than weeks or months. Each system upgrade, each new digital payment, and each regulatory improvement adds another layer to the foundation being built. These layers may not be visible to casual observers, but together they form the structure upon which future stability depends. Understanding this process helped shift the conversation away from speculation and towards substance, where the real work of economic development takes place. As this transformation continues, it becomes increasingly clear that digitalization is not an isolated reform, but part of a broader strategy to normalize Iraq's economic operations and rebuild confidence at every level of the system. Confidence is a fragile asset in any economy, and in Iraq's case, it has been tested repeatedly by conflict, sanctions, political uncertainty, and institutional weakness. Rebuilding it requires consistency, credibility, and time. Digital financial reforms contribute to all three by creating systems that behave predictably, generate reliable data, and reduce discretion in how money is handled. When rules are embedded in systems rather than dependent on individuals, trust can begin to recover in a sustainable way. The Central Bank of Iraq plays a central role in steering this process. Through digital monitoring tools and improved reporting mechanisms, it gains a clear picture of monetary conditions across the country. This allows for more effective policy decisions related to interest rates, liquidity management, and currency stability. Instead of relying heavily on indirect indicators or delayed statistics, policymakers can respond to trends as they develop. This responsiveness is particularly important in an economy exposed to external shocks, such as fluctuations in oil prices or regional instability. Digital tools do not eliminate these risks, but they improve the state's ability to absorb and manage them without destabilizing the currency. Another important element is the gradual formalization of economic activity. When transactions move from informal cash exchanges into digital channels, they become part of the recorded economy. This expands the tax base without necessarily increasing tax rates, simply by improving compliance and visibility. Businesses that once operated entirely in cash begin to establish transaction histories, which can later support access to credit and investment. Over time, This formalization increases productivity and encourages entrepreneurship, as firms gain incentives to grow within a regulated framework. A more productive and diversified economy strengthens the underlying fundamentals that support a stable currency. The relationship between digitalization and inflation control is also significant. In cash-heavy systems, excess liquidity can circulate unchecked, fueling price instability. Digital systems provide tools to monitor money velocity and identify pressure points before they escalate. This does not mean inflation disappears, but that it becomes more manageable. Central banks can calibrate interventions more precisely, avoiding blunt measures that might harm growth. For citizens, greater price stability improves purchasing power and reinforces confidence in the national currency. When people believe that their money will retain value over time, they are more likely to save and invest domestically. The role of international partners cannot be overlooked in this process. Technical assistance, advisory support, and conditional financing from global institutions often emphasize digital reform because of its multiplier effects. By meeting benchmarks related to transparency, compliance, and system integrity, Iraq strengthens its case for continued cooperation and support. These relationships are built on trust, and trust is reinforced by verifiable systems. Digital infrastructure provides evidence that reforms are not merely announced but implemented. This credibility matters not only for institutional relationships, but also for private investors evaluating long-term opportunities. It is worth noting that digital transformation is rarely linear. Challenges, delays, and resistance are part of the process. Infrastructure gaps, cybersecurity concerns, and public skepticism can slow adoption. Addressing these issues requires sustained investment and communication. Public education plays an important role in encouraging acceptance of digital tools. When citizens understand the benefits and feel confident in the security of systems, adoption accelerates. Trust grows incrementally as people experience reliability and convenience firsthand. Each successful transaction reinforces the perception that digital finance works and serves everyday needs. The interaction between digital payments and social stability is another dimension often overlooked. Efficient distribution of salaries, pensions, and social benefits reduces frustration and uncertainty among recipients. Predictable income flows contribute to social cohesion, especially in vulnerable communities. When people receive payments on time and without arbitrary deductions, trust in institutions improves. This trust feeds back into economic behavior, encouraging participation in formal systems. Over time, this virtuous cycle strengthens both governance and economic resilience. From a long-term perspective, the digital evolution of the dinar supports strategic flexibility. As global finance continues to evolve, currencies that can adapt to new technologies and standards are better positioned to remain relevant. Whether through enhanced payment interoperability, improved settlement systems, or future innovations, a digital-ready currency can respond more effectively to change. This adaptability reduces the risk of obsolescence and isolation. For Iraq, maintaining relevance in a rapidly changing financial landscape is essential for sustaining growth and integration. It is also important to recognize that digitalization reshapes expectations. As systems become more transparent and efficient, tolerance for inefficiency and corruption diminishes. Citizens and businesses begin to expect higher standards of service and accountability. This shift in expectations and drive further reform by increasing demand for institutional performance. While this process may create short-term pressure, it ultimately supports healthier governance. Stronger institutions, in turn, reinforce economic stability and currency confidence. Throughout this transition, patience remains a critical virtue. Structural reforms unfold gradually, and their benefits accumulate over time. Short-term fluctuations in exchange rates or economic indicator should be viewed in context rather than isolation. The presence of digital infrastructure does not immunize an economy from volatility, but it provides tools to manage it more effectively. Understanding this distinction helps avoid disappointment and misinterpretation of normal adjustments as failures. The narrative surrounding the Iraqi dinar is often shaped by external voices focused on speculation rather than substance. By contrast, the real story is one of incremental progress and institutional rebuilding. Each digital initiative, whether in payments, banking, or public finance, contributes to a broader ecosystem designed to support stability. This ecosystem does not promise quick rewards, but it offers durability. Durability is what allows economies to weather shocks, attract investment, and improve living standards over time. As these reforms deepen, their cumulative impact becomes more apparent. Increased transparency improves fiscal discipline. Expanded financial inclusion boosts domestic demand. Modernized banking systems facilitate trade and investment. Together, these elements reinforce each other, creating a network of support for the currency. The dinar's strength, in this context, is measured not only by its exchange rate, but by its functionality and reliability within the economy. In the end, digitalization represents a choice about the future. It reflects a commitment to move beyond ad hoc solutions and towards systems that operate on rules, data, and accountability. This choice aligns Iraq with global trends while addressing local needs. The path is complex and demanding, but it is also necessary. For observers seeking to understand the dinar's trajectory, focusing on these structural developments provides a clearer and more realistic picture than any rumor or short-term prediction. By viewing the dinar through the lens of digital transformation, the conversation shifts from speculation to strategy. It becomes less about guessing outcomes and more about evaluating progress. This perspective encourages informed engagement rather than emotional reaction. Ultimately, it highlights that the future of the currency is being built quietly, one system at a time, through deliberate effort and sustained reform.